You are listening to Contraband.
When I was growing up, I was never really a fighter. You know, if somebody pushed me, I might fight back, but I never really started fights with a lot of people. I wasn't one of those bullies or even, a person who was looking for a fight. Because I always thought, what if this person turns out to be a ninja? I grew up in a very ninja heavy era. They robbed banks, people hired them for bodyguards, they solved crimes. And you don't just become a ninja. Like I didn't even want to meet a person who was 3/4 of the way through their ninja training because they could probably kick my ass. Before a ninja puts on their Pooh Shiesty mask and their all black leotard, they got to be like a regular person, right? And what if you just like get into it at the grocery store or parking space and it turns out to be a ninja? When I grew up, the ninja population was vastly overrepresented in television and movies. So instead of a ninja, you know who I would want to meet now? Radical leftists. I mean, where are all these radical leftists who want to burn down the cities and put trans people in every bathroom and have no genders? I don't understand where all these radical leftists are that somehow you, me, and most people have never met. Or Antifa. Like, is American law enforcement that poor that they haven't arrested a single Antifa? They ain't broke up no Antifa cells. I mean, I've seen Proud Boys. I've seen white supremacist groups marching in Charlottesville. Where is the Antifa? They said they were at the George Floyd protest, but it turns out they were all Boogaloo Boys and right-wing extremists posing as Antifas. The Antifas were supposedly behind January 6th, but they didn't arrest any of them. They just arrested like right-wing white people. We know the Proud Boys exist. We know there are neo-Nazi groups, but we don't never catch no real live radical leftists, Antifas. Or how about the welfare queen? I know people who are on welfare, but do you know like any multimillionaires or people earning six figures who were also getting food stamps, cashing in on SNAP benefits? Where are all these people who we hear about but never see? It seems like by now we would have seen at least one teacher come out and admit that she or he were teaching critical race theory to like fourth graders. I hadn't seen any, man. Like they have a very good cover because I actually interviewed a guy who went to law school, got his law degree, took critical race theory during law school and became a teacher. And when I talked to him, man, all he was just teaching was like regular history. I was very disappointed because he wasn't even trying to make white kids cry in his classroom. I don't know where all these fictional people that we keep hearing about are coming from. Like, where are all the high level, upper echelon reverse racists? Like people who really got power and are using it to attack white people. Like white people are still 95% of the CEOs. They still got all the money. They still got all the good jobs. They still get into all of the colleges. Where are all of these reverse racists who are taking power away from white people and discriminating systemically? Or where are all the white people who could have gotten into Harvard or Princeton, but they had to go to community college because the reverse racists gave their spot to a black person who could barely read? Where are all these people? I want to know. You know who else has been very, very low key? All of the men who are posing as trans people so they can go into bathrooms or locker room and look at, I don't know, because my bathroom, they got those dividers, there's toilets with the booths around them. Like the only people I can really interact with in the bathroom are the people who washing their hands. Like 99.99999% of the time I'm in the bathroom, I don't see someone's genitals. So how do you know if a person is trans? I want to meet the people who made up the gay agenda. Like, where is the document? Can somebody send me a PDF or a link to the gay agenda on the internet? It's probably on the dark web. I also don't know what the dark web is. All my webs or bright. The most melanated web I use is incognito mode, but supposedly there's a dark web where all the radical leftists hang out. Or I never see like the drug pushers. I've met people who sell drugs, but I've never seen anyone approaching people who didn't use drugs and forcing them to use drugs, or standing on the corner trying to approach the smart black kid going to school, convincing them to use some cocaine that they never intended to use. Here's a hypothesis. What if they don't exist? What if, and I know this is going to sound crazy, right? What if like Isaac Newton was wrong? What if there is not an equal opposite reaction for every action? Right? What if there are real, violent, hateful extremists on the right, and we just assume that there's got to be an equivalent on the left? What if there are so many rich oligarchs taking advantage of capitalism that we just assume that there's got to be some poor people bankrupting America by taking advantage of the social safety net? What if all of the peer-reviewed, documented, well-researched studies about how teachers miseducate and ignore and undereducate black people, that we just assume that there's got to be an equivalent number of teachers, that we just assume that there's somebody force-feeding white kids too much black history or made up black history? What if there is no gay agenda? What if it is something that was made up by homophobic, evangelical, heterosexual, cisgender people who keep telling us that God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve? Or maybe there is an equal and opposite reaction for every action, but maybe the people that are creating these imaginary, mythical, hating ass, anti-white tropes are the opposite of people who are just trying to survive. People who just want to live in a world that's equal and fair, where everybody has access to opportunity to succeed based on their talent, their ability, and their merit. And all of those other people made up all of these things that we believe. Maybe there's not two sides to every story. Maybe one political side is not as bad as the other side. Because I've seen the white supremacists. I've seen black history be whitewashed. I've seen people who hate trans people and gay people. I've seen people who hate Muslims. I've seen people who are trying to rig the education system in their favor. I know that the rich are getting richer. I know that the middle class is declining. I know that the number of people who live in poverty correlate to how right-wing a state is. These are things that we know. And here's the thing. The people on the radical left, they don't want pedophiles pretending to be trans people in bathrooms either. They don't want white kids crying in school either. They don't want cocaine on their streets either. They don't want gangbangers in their neighborhoods either. They want their children to get an education. They want their children to have opportunity based on their talent and merit. They want safe neighborhoods. They want a law enforcement system that is responsive and solve crimes. And if they saw the radical Antifas, I will make this pledge to you today. If I see a radical leftist Antifa trans athlete forcing a sixth grader to use fentanyl while they're just trying to study their CRT lesson, or if I see a woke leftist CEO refusing to hire straight white men and giving all their slots to illiterate black children, you know what I'm going to do? I promise you. I'll call my ninjas. Then I'll wake up.
You are listening to Contraband.